Hello there, and welcome to Murder Most British. I'm Zach.
Hey, welcome. I'm Rachel.
Hiya.
Hey, welcome, guys.
Welcome. This is going to be a crazy one.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one was voted on by our patrons as our next England episode. And then the next member poll should be coming out sometime, and it's going to be picking the next Wales episode.
Ooh, exciting.
So after this one, I do believe. So,
yeah.
Yep.
So we're on episode 42 at the moment.
Yeah. Sharon Carr.
Yeah.
The Devil's Daughter. Absolutely wild.
Great pick, guys. Great pick.
Yep. I think I kind of stacked it, stacked the voting there. You can't put something like The Devil's Daughter in voting and people not go, hey.
That sounds intriguing. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But it's been like just researching it and writing it has been absolutely insane. So yeah, buckle up.
Well, before we begin, just a small request from us.
If you enjoy listening to our true crime stories, please give us a like, a follow, and a 5-star rating. It really, really helps. Also, follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Murder Most British and on Facebook at MMB Podcast.
And if you want even more Murder Most British, you can join us on Patreon for ad-free episodes, early access, and exclusive bonus cases that you won't hear on the main feed. Head to patreon.com/Murder Most British podcast. Take a look.
You can also join us in the public Crypt Chat, our free Discord channel, where you can talk about cases, share theories, and read the latest news from the archive. Your support helps the archive grow and ensures that no story is ever forgotten.
This episode contains discussion of child-perpetrated violence, knife violence, mutilation, sexualized violence, violence against animals, domestic abuse, and murder. Some listeners may find this content distressing, so listener discretion is strongly advised.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot going on just by the disclaimer. So,
yeah.
But let's get to the story.
So in the early hours of a summer Sunday, a young woman left a nightclub in Camberley and disappeared into the dark. By morning, near a cemetery path in Farnborough, 4 boys returning from a night of camping found her body. She had been stabbed again and again and mutilated. The violence was so extreme that police believed they were hunting a man. That alone would have made it a horrifying case. But this story did not end at the scene. In some ways, it began there. Because later, investigators would find a line in a diary that made the whole case feel even darker. I swear I was born to be a murderer.
Sharon Carr was born in Belize on the 21st of December of 1979, in the final years before independence. The country had only recently stopped being British Honduras. She never knew her biological father, who had left soon after she was born, and years later Sharon would say that she regretted that. She was one of 4 children, and the picture that emerges from those years is one of poverty, instability, and very little that felt secure.
Her mother, Maria, later married a British soldier serving in Belize, and Sharon and her siblings took his surname. And that marriage brought the family to England. In 1986, they moved to Camberley in Surrey. On paper, it might have looked like a move towards something steadier. Camberley was a military town with an orderly, respectable surface. But Sharon grew up on the old Dean estate, and behind that appearance, the family's private life was volatile.
Yeah, getting that military, I remember moving around, moving bases.
Yeah, they don't tend to stay at the same base like for the whole career, do they? So
yeah, you're just moving around, but you move somewhere and you're stationed there for a few years and you meet somebody and, you're like, hey, what's going on? So then you either like stay there or move away or whatever, depending on your contract. But yeah, crazy. So at first, Sharon did not stand out as someone headed for infamy. Teachers initially described her as polite and helpful. She seemed to have settled in pretty quickly and made friends easily. Susan Carpenter, the vice principal, later remembered her as above average, with lots of older friends, boys and girls, and said many staff found her refreshing. Friends said she especially liked the company of older boys. She also later played on the school basketball team. Just settling in, man. That's good.
Yeah. Well, but the first impression didn't last. The charm was still there, but so were flashes of aggression. Over time, the bright, sociable girl people remembered became disruptive, attention-seeking, and increasingly difficult to manage. She challenged authority more openly. And in 1990, while she was still at junior school, her head teacher contacted social services because of concerns about her behaviour.
Yeah, they don't do that lightly. You got to be
There
really
had to be
messing
some
up.
serious concerns, definitely.
Yeah, jeez. Well, at home, things were getting worse too. Her mother was described as volatile and harsh, and her stepfather was violent as well. The house was marked not just by rows and instability, but by serious violence and physical abuse. Then the marriage broke down after one especially serious incident, when Maria poured boiling fat over her husband. Both were hospitalized with burns, and Sharon was there to see it. Much was later made of how calm she seemed to be in that moment, as if scenes of violence had already become familiar to her.
Well, after that, Sharon spent a short time in foster care before returning home about a month later. By the time she started secondary school, her mother had a new partner who had already had 2 daughters, so the dynamic of the household changed again. But nothing seemed to settle for long. Even before Sharon was a teenager, there was already a pattern of violence, instability, removal and return.
Damn. Pouring hot fat on somebody.
Ouch.
That's crazy.
I mean...
And then her just being so calm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be freaking out. What the fuck is... I'd be screaming, what the fuck is going on here? Well, outside the home, Sharon's reputation was changing too. She was spending time with older kids, and there were later claims that she had started smoking cannabis at a very young age. Teachers and neighbors were no longer describing a child simply trying to find her place in a new country. People on the estate were afraid of her. That vice principal later said that after the trouble at home, Sharon became an attention seeker who used her strength to bully other girls. By then, adults around her were no longer talking about isolated incidents. They were seeing a pattern.
Mm. Which you can understand if she's experiencing this, sort of seeing her parents sort of behaving in this way, she's going to then, it's like a learned behavior. Like you think, oh, well, that's how we can treat people and,
This is just normal.
Yeah.
This is how everybody acts, right?
Yeah. Well, there were also stories about cruelty to animals.
Oh, God, no.
Pets had started going missing around her. Sharon was linked to the decapitation of a next-door neighbour's dog with a spade.
Jesus.
Very brutal. And there was also a claim from a friend that she had fried live hamsters.
Good God.
Some of those stories are firmer than others, but by the early 1990s, she was already being associated with behaviour people found deeply disturbing, and the fear around her in the local community was becoming harder to ignore. So with these behaviours, clearly, if the school have become aware, of course they're going to get in touch with the social services. So hence they did.
Serial killer.
It's definitely...
That is hallmarks of a serial killer in the making.
Yeah.
Killing animals.
We've seen, many cases start with that they are serial killers. Go on to become serial killers. Yeah, very, very
seems to
horrific.
me like a textbook case.
Yeah.
Well, then there was Katie Rackliff. She was 18, living with her parents in Hawley, just outside of Camberley, and working as a trainee hairdresser. The descriptions of her are brief but warm. She had friends, a job, nights out, and a life that was still just getting started. One former boss, Allison Moore, said Katie was not just a member of staff, but a part of the family. She came from a completely different world to Sharon Carr, even if they moved through the same corner of Surrey.
Saturday the 6th of June of 1992 began as nothing more dramatic than a night out. Katie Rackliff went to what I think is a pretty cool nightclub name, Ragamuffins nightclub in
What
Ragamuffins.
the
Let's go to
Ragamuffins?
Ragamuffins. Sounds pretty cool. So she went to Ragamuffins nightclub in Camberley with her best friend, Michelle. Like plenty of people on a weekend, she had gone out to drink, unwind and enjoy herself. But during the night, she ran into her ex-boyfriend, who was there with another girl. And the encounter seems to have upset her. Which,
Yeah, it would.
I would say it'd be a bit awkward.
Yeah.
She'd recently split from him and had obviously tried, but unsuccessfully, tried to patch things up. Didn't quite work out how she wanted. So staff later remembered that she seemed upset and the worse for wear when she left.
So after she left Ragamuffins, in the early hours of the 7th of June, the night began to slip out of view. Somewhere after that, Katie crossed paths with Sharon Carr. They were strangers. This was not some argument carried into the dark, not a feud reaching its end, not some old grievance turning violent. Until that night, their lives had not crossed in any real way. After that, the trail became broken, brutal, and hard to piece together cleanly.
Well, Katie didn't make it home that night. About 5 hours after she was last seen leaving Ragamuffins, she was found in Farnborough, miles from where the night had begun. Exactly how she got from one place to another was never really fully clear, but the distance, the timeline, and the condition in which she was found all raised a hard possibility that she had been moved by car. She had not been hidden carefully or concealed with any real effort. She was left out in the open, half naked, for the daylight to find.
So that morning, 4 boys who had been camping in the back garden of Toby Howe's house walked straight into its aftermath. The boys had heard screaming during the night, but had brushed it off as people messing around in the dark. By daylight, they were the ones who found Katie. Toby Howe's mother, Claire, said the boys were in deep shock when they came back.
Yeah, I think anybody would be, wouldn't they, if they come across.
Yeah, you're like just people walking around, again.
It's just not something that you wake up in the morning and you go for a walk or, you head down to the local shop or something and think that you're going to find. It's never going to be on your mind that, today I might find a half-naked dead body, It's very shocking. Like, I can imagine putting myself in their situation.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the attack itself was savage. Katie was stabbed over and over with a knife that was around 6.5 to 7 inches long. The wounds were concentrated in her torso and genitals. Her heart, lungs, liver and stomach were penetrated. Some of the blows went straight through her body. And this was not a single strike in panic. It was sustained, frenzied violence.
Good Lord. And it did not end there. Katie's genitals were also wounded and mutilated. Her clothes had been pulled up. There was no evidence of sexual assault in the conventional sense, but the attack plainly had a sexualized character. She was stabbed around 30 times or so, in an assault that went far beyond what was needed. It was overkill.
Some of her jewellery was taken, which adds another layer to the attack. Not enough to make it look like an ordinary robbery, but enough to make it feel more intrusive. What was done to her was excessive, intimate, and sexualised violence, inflicted by someone who was, in any normal sense, a stranger.
And remember, she's 12.
This girl's 12.
Sharon Carr is 12 at the time of this. So keep that in your minds.
Yeah, imagine
absolutely
a
crazy.
12-year-old doing this.
Oh. Yeah, I'm from 12, just running around playing video games, riding my bike around and shit.
I think that's what, I was doing that at 12, just mooching about, riding up to my friend's house.
Yeah.
Because we only had push bike then,
Yeah.
My mum weren't running me around like she was a taxi. You just hop on your bike and off you go, or you're on foot.
I just remember riding around going,
phones?
Where's everyone's bikes at?
Yeah.
Whose house are they at? And then there we go. And I wasn't thinking about this stuff. This is crazy.
Oh, mind you, 9 times out of 10, you plan to go to whichever friends, like when you was at school, you're like, yeah, we'll come to yours like after, or we'll meet up at the rec,
Yeah.
But madness.
Crazy. For police, the obvious assumption was that the killer was older, physically stronger, and almost certainly male. Everything about the scene pushed them that way. The extreme violence, the mutilation, the partial stripping, and the fact that she had been left miles from the nightclub. Hampshire police moved fast. An incident room was set up at Farnborough, and Detective Superintendent Ray Piper led the early inquiry. In those first hours, he described the attack as, quote, frantic, vicious, and sadistic.
Well, officers searched the area around the cemetery path for any evidence and tried to piece together Katie's final movements. They appealed for anyone who had seen her at Ragamuffins or seen her leave to come forward. Detectives also looked for a green Opel record, registration NWL 53W, that had been stolen from Station Road at about 150 yards from where her body was found.
Well, public appeals followed as well, including on Crime Watch, where police said there had been 516 people in the club that night, and all but 33 had been traced. Katie's parents also made public appeals for information, and 2 local businessmen offered £10,000 in reward money in the hope that someone would finally come forward. Even with that, no one could clearly piece together Katie's final movements after the club. It became one of the most intensive murder inquiries Hampshire police had ever mounted, and yet the case stalled.
Madness. So,
after all of that,
yeah, I mean, up until this point, the police don't know that the suspect is a 12-year-old.
Yeah, they just think it's a man.
Well, you wouldn't even think that a under 18 is going to be, driving a car neither.
Mm-hmm. The traditional wisdom for them is this was a man, probably in his, late 20s, early 30s.
You would 100% think it would,
strong,
more than likely be a man because of the sexual nature of the injuries and stuff, and obviously half naked. There's not really many cases that there are cases obviously, but it's highly unlikely that a female, and especially a young female as such as a 12-year-old, is going to be attacking in a sexualized way.
And an adult.
Yeah.
Attacking. Usually they attack other kids like them.
Exactly. So, one witness later said that Katie had been seen outside the club on her own and looking upset. And a staff member remembered her as one of the last to leave at around 2:30. Detectives also looked closely at 3 men who had been at Ragamuffins that night, but each was eventually ruled out. The Crime Watch appealed over Katie's missing jacket too, noting that the bottom button on the left-hand side was gone. These were small details, but by then the police were chasing anything that might narrow her final known movements. But none of it was enough. The case stayed unsolved.
Yeah, they were grasping at anything. Crazy. So, 2 years later, Sharon Carr was 14 years old and at Collingwood College in Camberley. On the 7th of June, 1994, 2 years to the day after Katie's murder, she attacked another girl, 13-year-old Anne-Marie Clifford, in the school toilets. Sharon had lured her there by claiming she had lost a pound coin and wanted help looking for it.
Sharon had stabbed Anne-Marie in the back with what was described as a 4-inch knife and punctured a lung. The attack only stopped because 4 or 5 other pupils walked in. Sharon would also threatened to kill Anne-Marie if she told anyone. Later material would suggest that this was part of a pattern. Sharon formed intense attachments to other girls and women, and when those fixations were frustrated, they could turn violent.
Good Lord. Thankfully, them other girls walked in. Jesus.
Yeah, she sounds like such a vicious girl.
Psycho. Well, thankfully, Anne-Marie survived, but the attack changed her life. She was badly injured and deeply traumatized by what had happened. She had difficulty sleeping, nightmares, and a lingering fear of what Sharon might still be capable of. She later remembered looking up during the attack and seeing Sharon smiling, though angry too at the same time, as she stood over her. Sharon was arrested after the stabbing and was found on the school grounds the following morning. She just headed right back to school like nothing fucking happened. Crazy, man.
Well, after Sharon's arrest, she told officers that she enjoyed stabbing cats and also beheaded a dog. After that, she was sent to Middlesex Lodge Assessment Centre in Hillingdon, a secure assessment unit. But even there, the violence continued. She assaulted other females too, including trying to strangle 2 nurses. In December of 1994, she was convicted of grievous bodily harm over the school stabbing and ordered to be detained at Her Majesty's pleasure, with the assaults on staff also taken into account. Even after hours of questioning by police, probation staff and social workers, she said nothing about the murder of Katie Rackliff.
Keeping that close to the chest.
Mm-hmm.
From there, Sharon moved through psychiatric units and Aycliffe Secure Center, including an all-boys unit, before being transferred in September 1995 to Bullwood Hall Young Offenders Institution in Essex. It was thought her aggressive and sexualized behavior could be managed more effectively there.
Yeah, I think if she's, I'm not surprised they put her in an all-boys unit because obviously her attacks were aimed at the females.
Women. Yeah.
You know, people would say, oh, well, you know, she's a female, she shouldn't be in all-boys unit. Well, you know, at the end of the day, the aggression that she was showing and the risk to females, not just other residents of these units, but also the staff.
Yeah,
most definitely.
Because she was even attacking nurses and shit. Yeah. So, like, trying to corral her into where she's not involved with women.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, staff at Bullwood Hall encourage young offenders to confront their past. But in Sharon's case, the silence seems to have broken for more personal reasons. She started talking on the phone to friends and family, to a probation officer, to staff and to other prisoners. But the key figure was a prison officer called Annette Sinney, to whom she had become intensely attached. That fixation was a big part of why she began talking about Katie's murderous soul.
There we go again. She's getting attached to women again. What she was saying included details that should not have been in her head unless she had been there. The staff passed that on, and the unsolved murder of Katie Rackliff was reopened. Officers seized her writings and drawings, searched the house at the Old Dean estate, and found more material there. The diaries and notes stretched back across months and years, which only made them more damaging.
Well, among the material was a scrap of paper, along with letters, notes, and drawings of the knife. Detectives then questioned her for 27 hours, and the investigation did not stop with the interviews and the papers. Sharon even helped police film a reconstruction of the murder, acting out what she said that she had happened. As she went through the details, she was repeatedly laughing.
God, absolutely wild.
Mm-hmm.
Like, as a cop, you'd just be like, this person is insane.
Yeah, because
Why would they be doing this?
Moral compass. That this is, but she's laughing throughout describing stuff.
Yeah, reenacting it.
Yeah, that any normal person would be like, this girl is absolutely crazy.
Yeah, remorseless,
Yeah.
enjoying
no
it.
empathy.
Yep.
Just like she's just watched an amazing, funny film.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, oh my God. Absolutely
Psychopath.
mad. Yeah.
Well, what came out of that questioning was not one neat confession, but 3 different versions of the night. The details shifted, but the center of them did not. In every version, Sharon said that she had stabbed Katie. She knew about the bracelet taken from her, something not made public, and she knew details police had deliberately withheld about the injuries and the scene. In one account, she described violating Katie's body after the stabbing. However much the stories moved around, they kept coming back to the same point. She knew things only the killer should have known.
Yeah. I mean, there's no way other than the killer would know about what item.
Doing those things or the bracelet. Yeah.
Well, she also named 2 boys. In one version, Sharon claimed Katie had tried to entice them away from her, which gave the attack a warped edge of jealousy. In another, she said that the boys had raped Katie before the body was dumped. Police spoke to both of them, but they gave each other alibis and were eliminated. Even so, one question remained. How had Katie been moved 4 miles from Camberley to Farnborough? And had Sharon really acted alone?
We each gave each other alibis. That's wow. I was with him. He was with me. We were at this place. Good. That's crazy. How can they give each other an alibi?
Yeah,
and
that's
you
crazy,
need an outside,
especially when they're possible suspects.
Yeah, wild, man.
You need somebody different to say, yes, we see these 2 boys together at this place.
Yeah.
It's just mad.
Well, her manner during all of this seems to have left almost as much impression as the words themselves. Detective Sergeant Paul Clemens, who interviewed her extensively, later said it was almost as if she was in another world. What stayed with him was the coldness. Most people, he said, show some feeling when you ask why they did what they did. With Sharon, he saw a complete absence of emotion and reason.
Well, alongside the interviews, there was the writing. Sharon did not just mention Katie once or twice, she kept returning to her. The diaries, notes, poems, and scraps formed a pattern of fixation. Sexual excitement, cruelty, and repetition. One of the clearest lines was also one of the simplest. Quote, "I am a killer. Killing is my business and business is good." Elsewhere, she wrote, quote, "Oh, damn, I've got a taste for red rum. And God, I want to get drunk." And said she had chosen what she called, quote, "a payback life," because nobody had listened to her problems.
Then the entries narrowed on Katie herself. One read, quote, "Remember KR. Oh God, she did get me going. So hot. Pity, really. I think about it and my head spins. But against the cops, I'm winning." Other entries suggested the killing both thrilled her and haunted her, dwelling on Katie's body, exulting in the murder, and trying to turn it into something grander and darker than the reality of what she had done.
Then the sexual violence came fully to the surface. One entry said, and I quote, "If only I could kill you again, I promise I'd make you suffer more, you slag. Your terrified screams turn me on." By this point, the writing was no longer just boastful. It was intimate, sadistic, and fixated on sex, fear, and power.
Good Lord. That is, for what she's writing this between like 12 and 14.
Yeah.
God.
Just so depraved and
just
the thoughts are very dark.
Yeah. Then there was one entry that read less like a boast and more like a replay of the murder itself. And we're going to kind of paraphrase because I didn't want to go through all of it. In it, she described bringing the knife to Katie's chest, said she needed to overcome, quote, her beauty, her serenity, her security, and ended with a chilling line about Katie's final breath. Quote, "I am joyful." Oh,
Evil woman. Evil girl.
that made me shiver. Oh, good God.
And at such a young age, you think, what has caused somebody to behave or think like this, are they born, there's always that question people ask, are they born a murderer? Or,
We've said this before, but like the nature versus nurture, there's been plenty of people who have overcome all that stuff, a violent past, a violent family or whatever, and they've grown up to be spectacular people and, were stronger. And then some just spiral.
And does it fall down to just choice, Are they choosing to do it because they get a threat? Or is there something in their psyche that is really off? Do you know what I mean? Is there a way that, when a child is born, to maybe do like a scan, just like like an MOT type thing, on their brains?
I mean, possibly.
Just to see if you can pick up on anything that.
I think it's also developmental.
It's
not just from when they're born, it's later on. And some of them have
before they start
injuries.
School then, the age of 4, you have a little brain scan to see how you're developing. And,
come here, little Johnny, here's your psychopathy test.
I would do that. I would be like, yep, I'll introduce this. I mean, if it's a preventative, if it could be some sort of preventative measure, then...
Yeah, maybe.
Who knows? Maybe one day. Well, even after that, the writing kept going. In another note, she wrote, quote, "I was born to be a murderer. Killing for me is a mass turn-on, and it just makes me so high I never want to come down. Every night I see the devil in my dreams, sometimes in my mirror, but I realise it was just me."
Good God.
I mean, the wordings and stuff, she doesn't sound
like a kid.
Thick. Do you know what I mean? She sounds very educated.
The teachers did say she was like above average. Wild.
I can't get my head around it.
So in November of 1995, she wrote, quote, "Last night, it occurred to me that killing her did me good. I know what I'm capable of, and will do it again." And it didn't stop there. In January of 1996, she gave further confessions, extending the pattern that had already begun around the prison officer. On the 4th anniversary of the murder, she even wrote, quote, "Respect to Katie Rackliff, 4 years today."
By then, investigators had the old dead end, the sudden breakthrough, the withheld details, the 2 boys who led nowhere, the notes in the loft, the diaries, the letters, the drawings, the coldness in interview, and page after page of Sharon Carr returning to Katie Rackliff again and again.
Sharon's words, her writings, and her knowledge of things that should not have been known by anyone but the killer had turned an unsolved case into a prosecution. She was arrested over Katie's murder, and in May 1996, she was charged.
By the time the case reached Winchester Crown Court in March of 1997, one fact hung over everything else: Sharon Carr's age. She was 17 in the dock, but had been 12 when Katie was killed. That gave the trial a grim and unusual tension from the start.
The trial lasted 4 weeks, and this was not a case built on forensic evidence. It turned instead on what Sharon had said, what she had written, and what those things suggested. The jury heard diary extracts, letters, and tape recordings from her police interviews. They had to decide whether they were looking at the fantasies of a deeply disturbed girl or the repeated missions of the person who had actually killed Katie. That'd be a tough one as a juror.
Yeah, but then with the detail.
Yeah.
Like
you don't want to believe it.
You're not gonna.
But it's true.
If the killer, she knows detail, she's written things that, and told in interviews, obviously, that only the killer would know. Well, then it would make it easier for the jury, to convict without physical evidence and stuff like that.
It's just very rare and unusual to be
Yeah.
in that situation going, did a 12-year-old really
Yeah.
fucking do this? This is
it's
crazy.
like we said, trying to get your head around
Yeah.
actually acceptance that a 12-year-old and girl as well,
Mhm.
is so violent and sadistic and, just done some horrific things to this girl.
Mhm.
And since, in her
Yeah.
stays
Attacking
in
people.
units and stuff. So,
Yeah.
well, before the case reached court, Sharon had recanted her confessions. Now, that is why the prosecution pressed the diary evidence so hard. Stuart Jones QC told the jury, quote, "She is constantly preoccupied with the whole question of Katie, as all these writings will demonstrate." The Crown's case was that Sharon kept returning to the same victim, the same killing and the same feelings around it, because she was writing from memory, not invention, not one stray boast, but a pattern. As the prosecution put it, she had either been haunted by what she had done or had exulted in it.
Mhm. The prosecution also said that the nature of Katie's injuries and the tone of Sharon's writings pointed in the same direction. This was not being presented as panic or childish loss of control. It was being presented as deliberate, sadistic, and sexually charged violence. In the Crown's view, the writing matched the injuries that were inflicted onto Katie.
The defence pushed the other way. Sharon had given different versions of events. Her accounts shifted. There was no simple forensic thread running straight from the crime scene to the dock. So the defence position was that a deeply disturbed teenager had produced grotesque, inconsistent, and unreliable material. And those writings should not be treated as a dependable account of what happened that night.
Bullshit. Anyways, the jury was not just deciding whether Sharon had killed Katie. They were also deciding whether this was murder or the lesser offense of manslaughter. And the prosecution kept returning to the same problem for the defense. Sharon knew too much. She knew about the stolen bracelet. She described an injury police had deliberately withheld. So even if parts of her story had changed, the Crown's case was that she kept revealing knowledge that only the killer should have.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the biggest. She revealed too much.
Yeah, definitely. Well, there was also the question of whether she had acted alone. And that did not go away in court. One unresolved point was how a 12-year-old girl could have moved Katie's body, weighing 8 stone, 8 pounds, across a pavement and around a corner on her own. The judge is said to have felt the evidence suggested that she was not alone, but that uncertainty did not stop the jury deciding the case against Sharon herself. They did not need every loose end tied up to decide whether she had taken part in Katie's murder.
Sharon herself made an impression in court as well. One report described her as stocky and childlike in appearance, wearing a white polo neck and a crucifix, and said she looked as though she had arrived for her first communion, trying to make her look good.
Yeah.
That only sharpened the gap between how she looked and what the jury had been hearing for weeks. Then, after about 5 hours of deliberation, the jury, 7 men and 5 women, returned a unanimous verdict. Guilty of murder. Not manslaughter, murder.
Well, that conviction made Sharon Carr Britain's youngest female murderer. The judge then lifted the order that had protected her identity during the trial, saying it was in the public interest that she be named.
Damn right.
For sure. Mr. Justice Scott Baker said, and I quote, "What is clear is that you had a sexual motive for this killing, and it is apparent both from the brutal manner in which you mutilated her body and chilling entries in your diary recording what you had done. That killing, as you put it, turns you on." Then he added even more plainly, quote, "You are, in my view, an extremely dangerous young woman."
Hell yeah. Yes, sir.
Yep.
You ain't fucking wrong. Well, she was detained at Her Majesty's pleasure, and her minimum term was set at 14 years. Not enough.
Damn.
Yeah.
No, that's bad.
It's also taking into account that she was a
That
child.
she was a child
still,
at the time, but
still,
yeah, it's 14 years.
That's in America, though. Like, younger people that are under 18, they can be tried as an adult. If it's so egregious and so crazy, they're like, you know what? You're a fucking adult.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. I think over here, it's like from you can be, charged and sentenced for a crime, like from 10 years old.
Yeah.
Now,
age of responsibility.
Yeah. Well, right from wrong.
Yeah.
Even at age 5, right from wrong because, if your parents have taught you right from wrong.
Yeah. Well, her parents weren't really that great.
No, but I mean, even still 14 years, I'm sorry, is not, as a minimum, is not long enough.
Well, yeah. Well, one account said that she looked as though she had fainted when the verdict was read, sitting slumped as her counsel handed her a glass of water. But by the time her previous convictions were being read out, she was standing and smiling in the dock. Another report said she was smiling as she left. It was one of those details people just didn't forget.
Vile.
Just like
vile girl.
Happy that she's
didn't give a care in the world.
No.
Well, in the public gallery, there were gasps of relief from Katie's family. Her father, Joseph Rackliff, raised his arms above his head. Outside court, standing with Katie's mother, Helen, and sister, Joanne, he said, quote, "I hope she rots in hell. She should have hung, shouldn't she?" Then he added, quote, "Obviously, we are very relieved at the verdict, but it doesn't bring Katie back at all. It is still a very sad occasion for us. It's been a tough 5 years. We are still, as you can see, grieving people and will remain that way for the rest of our lives."
Jeez, yeah.
But even with the conviction secured, not every question had gone away. Detectives still wanted to press Carr about who had been with her that night. And Katie's family remained distressed by the belief that others involved had never been caught.
Yeah, I would too. I say that they escaped justice. What the fuck?
Yeah, I mean, like, the distance and getting her, it does seem like there could have been, she could have had help. But then again, it's a question we just won't never know.
Yeah.
Not unless Sharon says.
Yeah. But, I mean, she did point out the two boys and they alibied out. And I think that was pretty weak.
I think that alibying each other was a very weak situation.
Yeah.
And probably should have had a bit more of a looking into, to be fair.
Well, Sharon Carr was first held at Holloway Prison, then transferred to Broadmoor, a high-security psychiatric hospital, and then that was in June of 1998. Later came Rampton, another high-security hospital, then the medium-secure Orchard Unit, before she was eventually moved back into the prison estate at HMP Bronzefield. That pattern across those years was much like the same. Transfer, assessment, and the continuing view that she needed to be managed in a highly secure condition.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and even inside Broadmoor, Sharon Carr did not disappear into some quiet institutional life. In 2001, a tabloid report said that she had planned to marry another patient, Robbie Lane, who had been sent there after killing his mother.
Good Lord.
Not
Finding
good.
love in Broadmoor. Good God.
Well, the two had met inside the hospital, where allowed supervised recreation together, and were said to have made arrangements for the Broadmoor chaplain to marry them in the chapel.
God
They
damn.
had even arranged rings from Argos.
Some Argos rings, Jesus.
But the wedding was later called off, and the rings were said to have been sent back. It is the sort of bizarre detail that kept Sharon Carr's name in the papers long after conviction.
Fucking bizarre, yeah. Jesus. Hey, honey, you want to get some Argos rings and get hitched?
I mean,
Good Lord.
obviously, they're still going to have just because they're in Broadmoor doesn't mean that they're not going to have like feelings of wanting to be in a relationship and stuff, you know. So I get that, but
it's not, I think it's just that normality. I think it's just it's the normality of it. Of just like, hey, we're just going to get married. Like they're just two young kids. Hey, you know, like you were murderers.
Yeah.
In a psychiatric hospital, one of the most secure. Come on, this is wild.
It's Becca's belief.
Yeah. Well, there was also legal attempts to change her position in prison. In the early 2000s, there were challenges to her minimum term and efforts to have her murder conviction reduced to manslaughter on diminished responsibility grounds. Those attempts failed. Get fucked. By February of 2015, she had been returned to Bronzefield because she was presenting a risk to patients and staff. The warrant stated that she no longer required hospital treatment for a mental disorder, or that no effective treatment could be given. That same year, she became a restricted status prisoner, effectively the female estate equivalent of Category A, the highest.
Yep. Well, by then, official material described her as having schizoaffective, emotionally unstable personality disorder, and recorded that she had been prescribed antipsychotic medication, though she didn't always take it. Staff also noted mood changes and periods of paranoid thinking. Carr remained in custody long beyond her tariff. She was moved to Low Newton in December of 2018, then returned to Bronzefield after a violent incident with another prisoner in August of 2019. There were also arguments about what kind of progression work she could access. A psychologically informed progression unit had been recommended, but while that was not available to her in the way first proposed, she was still given outreach work rather than being left in complete deadlock.
This is where I go, maybe like Maudsley, she needs her own little box.
There's a lot of people in jail that need their own little box. But yeah.
I don't think Maudsley needed it.
No, I don't.
You know, I think, you know, but someone like Carr, Jesus, she needs to be stuck in that glass box.
At every facility, she's
fucking fighting and hurting people. Just stick her in a box.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. Well, attempts to change that possession just kept failing again and again. There were challenges to her status, efforts to have her restricted status downgraded, and repeated reviews. But the same concerns kept resurfacing. Over the years, she assaulted staff and other residents, admitting that at one stage that she wanted to kill another inmate by slitting her throat. And on other occasions, claimed she believed that she was a lizard and cut herself to find out whether she was still human or not. In 2019, official records said that she had disclosed thoughts of murdering another prisoner. At one stage, she described wanting to split the woman's head open with a flask and throw her down the stairs to snap her neck.
This girl is just...
Put her in the box.
And being a lizard, I mean, this girl is delusional.
Yeah. I mean, schizophrenia with sort of, like they said, schizoaffective disorder, personality disorder, like bipolar situation.
But the risks are, obviously,
you're risking other people.
The other
safety.
People are in prison for a reason as well. But, for them to have to live side by side with a prisoner like this, it's going to affect their possibility of being rehabilitated and things like that. It's just living there in fear of this absolutely
so what is she gonna do next?
Volatile prisoner. Crazy. Well, she also had been involved in an altercation with a woman she had previously been in a relationship with. Official material said that old risk factors had never really gone away. Difficulty coping with rejection, intense attachments to certain people, and disproportionate reactions when those relationships seemed threatened. The official view was that there was still no convincing evidence that her risk, if unlawfully at large, had significantly reduced. Even with some engagement in education, work, mentoring, and psychological intervention, Sharon Carr was still being judged too dangerous to be safely let out.
Yes. Never let her out. But through all of that, though, the one thing that never changed was Katie. However many years had passed, however many hearings came and went, however many institutions Sharon Carr moved through, Katie Rackliff remained 18 years old forever. For her family, that was the real aftermath. Not prison categories or legal reviews, but a loss that did not move, ease, or end.
Well, that was the story of the Devil's Daughter and Sharon Carr.
And Katie Rackliff, who should still be here.
Yeah, very much
I'd
so.
say at the top of it, I would just say our thoughts go out to her family and
as always,
always.
Our thoughts are always with every case, with the victims, their family, and their friends.
Mm-hmm.
This case was absolutely horrific.
Yeah. Just you couldn't predict it in a sense. Like, yes, you're going to have troubled children and they're going to be naughty and stuff like that. But for her to be at 12 years old, a murderer, that is just beyond anything that I think at the time as well, the police could ever grasp.
Yeah.
You know, they're going off from just normal things like, hey, it's a man. It's, you know, he's probably this,
statistically, cases like this would make you believe that, you know, it was a male that was this violent enough to do stuff like this strong enough to do, you know, the types of injuries and, you know, the forcefulness.
And the sexualized nature as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Crazy.
Absolutely horrific case.
And then her words in the diary, I took some of it out. I was like, I'm not reading all this shit.
Yeah, I think,
it's just, it's so like,
graphic and grotesque that, you know, obviously we've put in a few of the quotes that she'd wrote in her diaries and things.
I just wanted to show like what she was thinking, how she was feeling about the whole situation, about the murders, or about the murder. I mean, she wrote a whole lot of paragraph about reenacting it in her diary so she could just go over and over it again and relive it. And that's another thing of like psychopaths and serial killers. They want to relive that again.
Yeah, hence, you know, and that's why they take like little things or, you know, something specific to what they've done as a memorabilia type trophy.
The bracelet.
But you know, she's putting it all in words, and so she can just sort of read it. I mean, we would read it as a story or, you know, but she's doing it in order to relive that night over and over just by reading what she done.
And she's like sitting,
how she felt when she did it.
You can see from the excerpts, pictures of the diary and that. She's drawing the knife as well as the words.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. Ugh.
Oh, dear. Well,
thank you so very much for listening. If you were able to get through all of that, it was absolutely crazy. Probably one of the worst ones that we've done so far.
Yeah, definitely one of the worst cases we've covered so far. Just in how horrific and just
crazy of who it was.
Yeah. Well, if you'd like to support the work that we do here in the archive, please take a moment to follow the show and leave us a 5-star rating. It helps others discover the stories that we tell and keeps the archive growing. Sharing the podcast with someone who loves true crime also makes a huge difference.
Also, you can jump over to our Patreon for more true crime episodes ad-free and 24 hours early. Just go to patreon.com/murdermostbritishpodcast.
Everything you need, socials, Discord, Patreon and more is in our link tree below.
Until next week, stay safe and stay curious.
Stay curious, guys. Bye-bye.
And now with our Ravens Council on our Patreon. Our biggest supporters. We have Ruby Tucker 1956, Claire, Extreme Clunge, Whiskey 45, and Kelly. Thank you.
Thank you guys for joining us.
Thank you very much. It means a lot to us. See you next time.